Okay, good evening. Parshas Pinchos. Now, I came across a fabulous piece in Rabbi Nevinsal's Sefer. I saw it in the Sefer of Reb Rosner. He referred to it, and I went to the Reb Nevinsal Sefer in the Eitzah HaChochma, and I looked at it there. It's a fabulous piece regarding this week's Parsha. He says the following. There are 6 themes, 6 sections in this week's Parsha, Parshas Pinchos. What are the 6 sections? Number 1. We know the beginning of the Parsha. Pinchas is awarded the Bris Shalom. He's awarded this covenant of peace. He becomes a Kohen after being a hero and killing Zimri. Number 2, he's instructed, Moshe Rabbeinu is instructed to avenge Midian. Number 3, we've got to count the people. There is another census in Parshas Pinchos. Number 4, you've got the story of Bnei Slavchad. The daughters of Slavchad asked to inherit their father's land in Eretz Yisrael. Number 5, Moshe Rabbeinu, on hearing that he's going to die, he's asked for a replacement as leader. We need a new leader for Klal Yisrael to be appointed. And lastly, the Karbonos. The Parsha ends with the Karbonos, the Karban Tomid, the daily Karbonos, Shabbos, Yom Tov, etc., etc. So if I were to say to you, are these 6 sections, the 6 themes of Parshas Pinchos connected? You would say no. I would have said no. Totally unrelated topics. Says Rav Nevinsal, there is a common theme of all of them. What is the common denominator of these 6 sections? Says Rav Nevinsal, this is all to do with Moshe Rabbeinu's preparation for his death and ensuring a smooth transition for the future of the Bnei Yisrael. Now let's see this. So I've got it inside. It's so beautiful to see it inside. So thanks to the Eitzah HaChochma, I was able to cut and paste and to put it in here. Says Reb Nevinsal in Sichas Lesape, Parsha Seinu Oisekes B'Shisha Inyonim Shonim. Our Parsha deals with 6 seemingly random, disparate topics. Kuhunas Pinchas, Hakos Midian, avenging Midian, Minyan Bnei Yisrael, the counting of the Jewish people, Parshas Bnei Slavchad, Bakoshas Manig La'am, appointing a new leader, the Karbonos Hamayadim and the Karbonos. There is a common denominator, a thread which links them all. Between all the topics of the parsha. In the common theme, the thread that weaves them all together, the parsha hu hachonos lehistalkus min ha'olam. It's Moshe Rabbeinu's preparation to leave this world. Now he goes through each one to explain how. Aleph, hakete harishon, the first section, the parsha, oisek ba'avoras hakun lePinchas, talks about Pinchas becoming a Kohen. Ad ata, until now, lo hoya Pinchas Kohen. Pinchas till now was not a Kohen, he was a Levi. Limroi shehoya nechta shel Aaron, even though his grandfather was Aaron HaKohen, Pinchas ben Elaz ben Aaron HaKohen, his grandfather was Aaron HaKohen, shechoyu oz, who was still alive. Bnei Aaron hanimshachim hevires hakahuna lenechtam, lenechodim shenodu la'achar Mashiach. In other words, Pinchas, Aaron HaKohen and his sons were anointed to be the Kohanim. And all of their future descendants would be Kohanim. But Pinchas was alive at the time, and he was not a Kohen. He wasn't anointed as a Kohen. We discussed in one of the previous Parsha share, why wasn't he a Kohen? Because some say he was a child, and you can't anoint a child, whatever the reason may be. But he wasn't anointed a Kohen. Therefore, it's going to be a very strange thing. His father's a Kohen, his grandfather's a Kohen, but he's a Levi. And all his descendants for future times, all the other people born from Aaron and his sons, are going to be Kohanim. However, Ko'ez, ba'akvas ma'aseh, on the back of his heroic act, mischahin gam Pinchas, he became a Kohen. Kamoi Kain, mafticha Torah shakun taver gam lebnei Pinchas, shohiselo lezara achrav bris kun zolim. It's not going to be him only, but all of his descendants are going to be Kohanim as well. Now, what has that got to do with Moshe Rabbeinu preparing for his death? Says Rav Nevinsal, a beautiful insight. Moshe had to make sure, before he died, that it was very clear who was a Kohen, who was a Levi, and who was Yisrael. Because everyone needs to know who they are in order to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And therefore, before he takes leave of this world, my responsibility as a leader is to inform my flock who they are and how you serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu. You're a Kohen, you're a Levi, you're Yisrael, and Pinchas was a little bit in no man's land, so he had to sort of sort that out. That was one of his to-do things before he takes leave of this world. Okay, number 2, next box. But Parsha Hashniya, the second Parsha, Oisekes Yeshiras B'Histalkos Moshe Rabbeinu, we deal straight away with the departure again of Moshe Rabbeinu. Well, what is he told? Tzureres HaMidyanim V'Hikisa Mosam. Agitate, go to war, fight against the Midyanim, and take revenge and smite them. Mavur b'Medrash, the Medrash says, Shehakos Midyan Hoysa Tanai L'Histalkos Moshe Min Ha'olam. Hitting and taking revenge against Midyan was a tanai, was a condition that had to happen before Moshe Rabbeinu dies. For kafishim mefurish Parsha Haba, like the Parsha says, Nekoim nikmas b'nei Yisrael me'es hamidyanim, achar te'osef el hamecha, and then you will pass away. So you see, you've got to fight against Midyan, and then you're going to die straight away. Ubazeh shivcha shel Moshe, and this is the tremendous praise of Moshe Rabbeinu. Shelo ikev esaytzil milchama, he didn't delay. Anyone else knows that they're going to die straight after doing this act. You'll take it slowly. You'll have a slightly leisurely breakfast that day. You're not going to run to do it, but not Moshe Rabbeinu. He did it, that was a mitzvah to do it, he runs to do it. Even though he knows immediately afterwards, he's going to leave this world. And he encouraged the people of the army to expeditiously go ahead and do the mitzvah of Hashem. Gimel. That's number 2. Number 3. Minyan Bnei Yisrael. Counting the Jewish people. What has that got to do with Moshe's preparation for death and the smooth transition of the Jewish people? Muva Barashi. Rashi brings in this week's Edra. Keitzatz kosher haminyan leptiras Moshe. What is the Moshe? Rashi himself says the connection between the counting of the Jewish people and the death of Moshe. Moshel l'royeh. He gives the moshel of a shepherd. Shemoselei habaylim esoin b'minyan. The owners of the flock gave the shepherds the sheep to look after. When the roya gives the sheep back to the bailim, to the owners, you gave me 38 sheep, here are 38 back. Well, here's that you give them the count. So too over here. You gave me a job 40 years ago and you gave me so many people to look after. Here they are, this is the number. You gave me, this is the number back. Same thing. Next. And moreover, it's not just a minyan for now, just as we just said, it's not only that. It also connects to the next generation. It's very connected to the next stage, the next chapter in the Jewish people's history of dividing the land. Whether you are of the opinion that you divide the land according to the numbers that came out of Mitzrayim, and it's their children who receive their portions of the Yotzei Mitzrayim, or whether you're of the opinion it's the people that came into Eretz Yisrael, it's that way around. Whatever the opinion, either way, it's going to have a very primary connection to the next stage of the story of dividing the land. A central aspect in this Seder is therefore the division of the land, which is the next stage in the journey. Good. So that is number 3. Number 4. Pashas B'nai Slavchot. What's that got to do with anything? Well, again, it's to do with the next stage. It's making sure that the division of the land is going to be done properly. There's a question mark over this group of ladies, the B'nai Slavchot, and perhaps anybody in their situation. What if a man dies? He only has daughters. Do their daughters get a share in the land or not? So therefore, that was also connected to the next stage in the journey. Number 5. La'achar mikan mefia bakoshas Moshe Rabbeinu me'Hashem limnois ish al ha'edah. Clearly that was connected because Moshe Rabbeinu requests, can you please appoint a man who is going to oversee the congregation, the next leader of Klal Yisrael. Sheyanhig es Yisrael achar p'tiraso, who's going to lead the Jewish people after his death. So that's clearly connected. That's part of Moshe Rabbeinu's preparation to ensure a smooth transition for the future of the Bnei Yisrael. And lastly, the 6th one, the 6th one, which concludes the Parsha, hu inyan ha-karbonos. Now, what's the karbonos got to do with anything? Gam inyan zeh niskasha pi chazal lesalkos Moshe. Moshe lebas melech. He gives a moshel. For the daughter of a king, she'omda lipot min olam, she's about to take leave of this world, ubiksha mibayla she'inig b'chamolim bonim v'lo yanishem. And she begs of her husband that he should take good care of the children, he shouldn't punish them. So the king says, Ad she'at, turning over the page, Ad she'at mitzava isi, before you start commanding me, tzaves bonaich shelo yipashu bi. Better to command your children that they behave properly, and there'll be no need to punish them. Better than telling me what to do, tell the kids to behave properly, and there'll be no need to punish them. Before you start looking for a new leader for the Jewish people, so the Jewish people shouldn't be without a shepherd, be without a leader. And better tell them how to be makriv karbonos, to offer up karbonos properly, with all the necessary preparation, and there'll be no need to punish them because the avodah will be done. Hine says the Rabbi Nevin Kol inyona shel Parsha, the whole theme of Parshas Pinchos, all 6 sections of the Parsha, hachona listalkus hadar hanechochi. It's a preparation for Moshe Rabbeinu's departure and for preparing Klal Yisrael for the next stage in the journey. Havaras hakuna hanoga v'anachlas beretz Yisrael l'dar haba. So a very brilliant, a very beautiful insight of Nevin to connect all themes together. 2 more points for tonight's shiur. Now, like I said to you, tonight is the last shiur in the series. Mission will break for the summer, and then we'll resume in Mitzvah Hashem in Elul in September. But it's sad that we're still out of sync with Eretz Yisrael, and we're only going to catch up, not this Shabbos, but next Shabbos, Matas Maseh. We're learning Matas Maseh together, they're learning Maseh. Now, if you cast your minds back to the first shiur after the Pesach break, or whenever after Pesach, we questioned it. Why is it that on Pesach, which finished on a Friday in Eretz Yisrael, and a Shabbos here, so that Shabbos, it was a Pesach for us, it was Achron Shal Pesach, and Eretz Yisrael was already Parshas Achrimus. And we kept, so that we could have caught up, and we've been out of sync since then. So why don't we just catch up the first week? The first Shabbos after Pesach in Chutz La'aretz, we could have just said, let's do Achrimus Kadoshim, and then from the next week we'll be together again. So we gave an explanation at the time, the first explanation. But since then I came across a different explanation which is related to Parshas Pinchos, which I'd like to share with you. The first explanation is that we wait until Masas Maseh to emphasize the rule of Tzumu v'Tzulu. What does that mean? So the back of the Feldman Kitzur Shulchan Aruch, David Feldman's Kitzur, of London fame, La'olam Monu v'Itzru, he's got various rules when it comes to Kriyas HaTorah. And one of them is Sumu v'Tzulu. What does that mean? Tisha B'Av Kodim Parshas Vayeschanan. Tisha B'Av has got to come before Parshas Vayeschanan, Kedei lahasmich teichach Moshe Rabbeinu leTisha B'Av. I.e., we have Parshas Devarim immediately before Tisha B'Av, which is next week or in a few weeks' time. That's exactly what's going to happen. V'acha Kabbalas HaOynish, and after you've got Tisha B'Av, which is the Oynish, then you've got Vayeschanan b'yesh b'Kabbalas HaTorah. You then receive the punishment and you move on and you makabel the Torah again, which is Parshas Vayeschanan, which has Kriyas HaTorah. To emphasize the rule that you have Devarim before Tisha B'Av and Vayeschanan after Tisha B'Av, you therefore quickly rush and you join Matas Maseh together and say, we need, like here in not this week but next week, we'll say, let's quickly do Matas Maseh together. So that next Shabbos will have Devarim immediately before Tisha B'Av and Vayeschanan afterwards, so to emphasize the rule of Tzimu v'Tzilu. Pseidah. Now, there's another reason which I came across. Norman Turner told me this pshat. It's a beautiful pshat. He said, another reason he heard is that wherever possible, we try to make sure that Parshas Pinchas is going to be in the 3 weeks. Now, in Eretz Yisrael, it's not possible, because this week will be Matas, next week's Maseh, and the week after will be Parshas Devarim. But in Chutz La'aretz, this week, in the 3 weeks, we've got Parshas Pinchas, then Matas Maseh, and then Devarim. Why is it so important to have Parshas Pinchas in the 3 weeks? Because, like I just said, the end of the Parsha deals with the Karbonos. And we want to have that in the 3 weeks. It's like a silent yearning. It's an expression of our desire that we once again want to have the Karbonos. And therefore, the whole summer, we're out of sync with Eretz Yisrael, just so that Parshas Pinchas can be in the 3 weeks, because it contains the story of the Karbonos, which is an expression of our yearning that, so please God, we'll have a Beis HaMikdash again, and we'll be able to build and to have a Beis HaMikdash. Let me finish with one fabulous idea. This is the last year of the season, so it's a thought for the holiday period. There's an amazing Mishnah Berurah. The Shulchan Aruch says in Hilchos Krishma, this is in Siman Ayin Aleph Seif Hey, HaChofer kever lemeis potter. If someone digs a grave for a mace, his potter from Kriya Shema. There's a concept of oisik b'mitzvah potter min mitzvah. So a person who's digging the ground, it can take a long time. It can be, until you're digging the ground, you're oisik b'mitzvah, you're potter from Kriya Shema. That is the Shulchan Aruch here in Hilchos Kriya Shema Siman Ayin Aleph. Now the Mishnah Berurah says something which is amazing. Afilu b'shas noichei ma'at. Even if he takes a bit of a break. He can be digging there and it's the hot summer now and the ground can be very hard and he's digging and after half an hour digging, he needs to take a break. Afilu b'shas noichei ma'at. Even when he's resting a little bit, shegam oz nikra adayin oisik b'mitzvah. He's still called oisik b'mitzvah and is therefore exempt from Kriya Shema. Shal yidei zeh yischazek koiche lachsa v'lachbar. Because the resting is part of the mitzvah. And therefore, he needs to sit down for a few minutes to gather his strength again in order to continue digging. That's an amazing Mishnah Berurah. Because the implication, of course, is that if a person goes away on holiday, in order to recharge the batteries, so that they can learn and they can keep a life of Torah and mitzvahs, then the very holidaying itself is a mitzvah. That's what emerges from this Mishnah Berurah. I think that's a very powerful idea, a very important concept to think about. Rabbi Steinberg, I once heard an amazing psak. I can't remember where I heard this, possibly in his biography. But in Rabbi Steinberg's Sefer, a young mum asked him a question. The young mum it was full on at home. The kids were young and they were getting up very, very early in the morning, and she was busy from the early hours of the morning, 5 a.m., to look after her young family. And by the time she got them up and got them ready and fed them and and clothed them and took them off to kindergarten and she came home and did the shopping and then she felt that from 11 o'clock to about 11:15 she had a little window where she could just have 15 minutes for herself before she moves on to the next part of her day. And she asked Rabbi Steinberg, what do I do in that 15 minutes? I've got a choice. Either I could daven Shachris, which I haven't had a second since 5 a.m. to do, or I can have a cup of coffee, put my feet up and read something and just relax. What does Rabbi Steinberg say to her? You have your cup of coffee. Because for you, that is what you need to make yourself the best mum that you can be. Yeah, the famous story that the mum needed a bit of time in the kitchen. She just needed, the kids were getting a bit too much for them. They were knocking on the kitchen door. She locks the kitchen door. And the kids are banging on and she says, they say, what are you doing, mummy? She says, I'm cooking. She says, what are you cooking? She says, Ich koch a mama. I'm cooking a mummy. In other words, I'm cooking myself, I'm preparing myself to be able to deal with you. I need that 5 minutes of downtime just so I can function properly. That was Rav Steinberg's psak. Let me just read you a Rambam, we'll finish with this. Unbelievable Rambam. The Rambam in Hilchos Deis, I think, says mamish this point. Hamanig atzmei al pi harefua. Someone who lives a healthy lifestyle. So his body can be healthy and strong. So that he can live a Torah life, he can learn properly, he can have a clear head. A person can't think straight if he's hungry, if he's sick, or if one of his limbs hurts him. If a person lives the healthy lifestyle, every single day of his life is serving HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Why am I doing exercise? Why am I sleeping well? Why am I eating well? Why am I just downtime well? In order to recharge the batteries to serve Hashem. Even when a person sleeps, says the Rambam, if he's sleeping in order that he can rest up, and rest his body, that he shouldn't get sick. Because if he's sick, he can't serve Hashem properly. His sleep is part of his avodas Hashem. That's what Chazal mean. The Parsha means Kol Ma'asecha Yirashem Shemayim. To know HaKadosh Baruch Hu in everything you do. So I think this is a beautiful sort of parting thought as we go into the holiday season, that if a person goes in with a view to rest up, to recharge the batteries in order to serve HaKadosh Baruch Hu, the very holiday itself, the sleep, the eating, the resting, the walking, becomes part of your avodas Hashem and becomes a mitzvah. Amazing, a kiyum of Chol Ma'asecha Yush L'Shem Shemayim and B'chol D'rochecha Da'ehu. Thank you for listening, thank you for coming to the series, and have a very good summer.